Welcome in on a Monday, everybody. I'm Reed Cowan. So former Florida Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz fighting back after that much talked about House Ethics report. We have that, plus the man accused of killing United Healthcare CEO back in court, facing the reality of both state and federal charges. The big question, can he get a fair trial? His lawyer is not so confident about that question. This is As promised, when we see it, you see it. Right off the top, breaking news out of North Carolina, where police are on the scene of a shooting at a Food Line grocery store in the town of Greensboro. That is about an hour east of Durham. The Greensboro Police Department said they will release more details that also involved, as we're hearing, an officer. We're watching this story closely. We'll keep you updated as soon as we know more. Once again, North Carolina police on the scene of a shooting inside a store. All right. Former Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz tried and failed to block the release of that much talked about and very explosive House Ethics report. CBS News reviewed the report, which accuses Gaetz of having sex with a minor, paying for sex with multiple women, and doing illegal drugs. Allegations in that report that Gaetz denies. That report accuses Gaetz of making $90,000 in payments to 12 different women. The House Ethics report goes on to claim those payments were likely connected to sexual activity and to drugs. The committee wrote it heard testimony that Gaetz had sex with a 17-year-old girl at a party in 2017. The report called her Victim A and said she recalled receiving $400 in cash that evening, which she understood to be a payment for sex. The report also said Gaetz appeared to have set up an email account from his office in the complex of the Capitol to buy marijuana. That report went on to conclude that Gaetz violated House rules that prohibit prostitution, statutory rape, illicit drug use, and obstruction of Congress, among other standards. So lots to talk about here. Let's bring in CBS News investigative producer Michael Kaplan. Okay, Michael, the report accused Gaetz of violating multiple state laws while in office. What can you tell us about that?
Hey, Reed. Yeah. So the various state laws that the report says Gaetz, that the report found that Gaetz violated were state laws in Florida related to statutory rape, prostitution, and illicit drug use. And it all stems from a series of events and parties that Representative Gaetz allegedly attended that were drug-fueled, where there was a lot of sex involved. Women were paid, as you noted in your lead-in, a total of $90,000 in payments to 12 different women, likely connected to sexual activity or drug use by former Representative Gaetz. And those laws are different than the laws he was previously investigated for by the Department of Justice in their federal probe.
So how unusual is it to see a report released like this, especially after a lawmaker resigns from Congress?
Well, it's really unusual, not unprecedented, and I think the committee did this sort of in light of, and they said they weren't doing this lightly, but they did this in light of the severity of the allegations and the obstruction that they say former Representative Gaetz engaged in all the way through. There were the report lays out multiple opportunities for Representative Gaetz to come forward to respond to these allegations, and they say time after time he employed delay tactics, he blew off a subpoena, he wouldn't sit for a sworn interview, and at the same time publicly on social media and other places accused the committee of engaging in a smear campaign, and that's his position to this day. He broadly denies these allegations, says he's done nothing wrong. But this is the first time we've sort of seen all this evidence put together, witness testimony, text messages, payment receipts, all put together in one place, and it spells a pretty damning picture.
So to that picture, does that report give any indication that Gaetz could face any legal action in the future? Why have we not seen charges?
Well, as I noted before, the Department of Justice investigated him for sex trafficking, which is extremely a serious crime, and they did not bring charges. The House Ethics Committee concluded the same thing. He did not actually traffic women for the purposes of sex. The state charges, and the report notes this, the statute of limitations on those charges has expired. One of the other things the committee's mandated to is investigate violations of House rules. And the report details many, many violations of House rules, particularly around receiving impermissible gifts and drug use and the like. And so, the statute of limitations is one reason. But I really think here the committee's objective was to get this all out on one page. These allegations have been swirling around Representative Gaetz for years, through anonymous sources, through other folks who have been involved in litigation around it. But this is the first time you're sort of seeing a document come forward spelling out, an official document coming out, spelling out everything that sort of went on during this period where Mr. Gaetz was in Congress and sort of participated in this series of parties and events with rampant drug use and sexual misconduct.
CBS News investigative producer Michael Kaplan, thank you so much. We know there are a lot of things in that report. That's a lot to get through. You have a good day. Well, to New York City and the arraignment of the man accused of shooting United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. 26-year-old Luigi Mangione pleaded not guilty to 11 state murder and terrorism charges. In fact, this is one of two proceedings that Mangione faces in the coming days, with the federal charges including the possibility of death. Now, Mangione will be back in court February 21st. So let's bring in CBS News correspondent Lilia Luciano. Lilia, you were in the courtroom for Mangione's arguments and arraignment. Paint a picture of what you saw.
Hey there, Reed. Good to hear you. Mangione today, as he did last Thursday in federal court, showed up not dressed in the prison jumpsuit, but dressed in khaki pants, a button-down white shirt covered by a sweater, this time burgundy. As you might have seen and are seeing in the images, he was calm. He was not looking around. He was listening intently to the attorneys who were sitting on either side. The attorneys who are representing him are a married couple. There's Mark Agnifilo, who is also representing Puff Daddy P. Diddy, and Karen Friedman Agnifilo, who today, as she did last week, was pushing back against what she has called highly unusual moves made by the federal and the state prosecutors. What she laid out today was what she said was a spectacle. She was specifically addressing the way that the city, that NYPD, and especially Mayor Eric Adams, is the way that they are treating this case. You might remember that deployment of officials, of heavily armed guards, of the mayor basically parading next to him when Mangione was brought from Pennsylvania to New York City, surrounded by the NYPD and then handed over to the FBI. What his attorney is arguing is she's saying these are political moves. She made sure to of Mayor Eric Adams' own legal cases, and saying more than anyone he understands the presumption of innocence and due process. She says that her client is not being treated fairly, that there are warring accusations between the federal charges, which I might remind you are charges that include murder and stalking, which have a maximum penalty of capital punishment, of the death penalty. And then in New York, in the state criminal court, he's facing first-degree murder, which is also a very high bar for prosecutors, for the district attorney of New York to prove. According to what he told me directly in a press conference last week, is it's rare for that district attorney's office to charge people with first-degree murder, that those are charges that are generally saved for serial killers, for people who kill police officers, and in this case, for people accused of terrorism. So those charges, first-degree murder in connection to terrorism. There's also second-degree murder and a long list. It's 11 in total on the federal side and 4 in total, on the state side, and 4 in total on the federal side. What his defense is saying is, look, they are conflicting with each other. There's an odd coordination here. There was a political. They were playing ping pong, is how she described it, how she characterized it today, with my client, who's not being allowed a fair trial. Inside the courtroom, just to add a little bit of what I observed, sitting behind us in the media were a group of young women who I have to assume are supporters of Luigi Mangione, given that some of them were outside. And when we walked outside first and after, there were protesters chanting in favor of Luigi Mangione, people who are using this opportunity to bring light and bring attention to unfair practices in the healthcare industry, and many of them very much in support of Mangione. He remained calm, he pleaded not guilty, and then he was taken away by court officers.
All right, fresh from the room where that hearing happened, Lilia Luciano, thank you so much. So Lilia brings up some interesting legal points there. So let's bring in CBS News legal contributor Jessica Levison. Jessica, I want to actually show you what Lilia is talking about there in court. Mangione's attorney expressing concern over whether her client can get a fair trial. So let's listen to this, and then we'll talk on the other side.
And I just want to put on the record statements that the mayor made publicly about my client. Nothing saying alleged, for example. And he said, I wanted to send a strong message with the police commissioner that we're leading from the front. I'm not going to just allow him to come into our city. I wanted to look him in the eye and state, you carried out this terrorist act in my city, the city of New York that I love. And he wanted to show symbolism. Your Honor, he's not a symbol. He's somebody who is afforded the right to a fair trial. He's innocent until proven guilty. And the mayor was talking to jurors, future potential jurors that elected him. Those are the people that elected him, that he is talking to and calling this man a terrorist.
Right. So, Jessica, the crux of this is, of course, what New York Mayor Eric Adams had to say about Mangione leading up to this. Does her argument have teeth?
Well, I understand her concerns here, but that's what jury selection is about, right? To talk to jurors and say, you may have heard a lot of things and you may yourself have some views, but can you put your personal views aside and just look at the facts that are presented in a courtroom, just look at the law that applies? I think what's also important to remember, of course, is that the district attorney does not answer to the mayor. The mayor is an elected official who has the right to make statements as he sees fit. She's certainly arguing here it's going to taint the jury. But again, jury selection in this case, we always assumed if it does go to trial would be pretty vigorous. And that's how you can try to remedy her concerns, which is to talk to every individual juror, which is going to take some time, and ask if they can do their job, ask if they can be neutral.
Right, and something else that caught my ear, Jessica, Mangione's defense team requested expedited discovery in this case. Isn't this unusual for defense teams? In my experience, the defense wants to take all of the time that they can with all the discovery.
Unusual in more of a typical case, but I think part of what we see here, one, is that this is a case you and I are talking about, which almost by definition means in some ways it's not typical, but also when it comes to the not just high profile cases, but the more complex cases where, for instance, there are both federal and state charges, and the cases where you're going to see the defense use vigorous motion practice to try and exclude evidence, then it's not as unusual for the defense to say, we want to get our hands on that evidence now. I think what it frankly telegraphs to us is that, one, it is high profile, two, it is complex, and three, the defense is going to try and exclude, which would always be the case, I think, as much evidence as is possible.
Okay, so let's put that one aside, and while we have you, let's pivot to this ethics report that we started this broadcast out with on Florida Republican Matt Gaetz. That report alleges crimes committed. So why no charges, especially given the language of that report using the word statutory rape?
So I think two different reasons. One is that based on a quick look at Florida law, it looks like based on the allegations here, based on the findings of the House Ethics Committee, that the statute of limitations would have run on the type of statutory rape charges that they could bring. Two, we should all remember that a House Ethics Committee investigation is different from an investigation by criminal prosecutors. And so it's both, I think that there's a time issue here, and it's possible that prosecutors could have felt that, well, there might be evidence, maybe they couldn't prove these claims beyond a reasonable doubt. Again, I want to emphasize my words maybe and might here, but I think those are two things that we really need to look at.
Right, and it is worth noting that Matt Gaetz continues to vigorously deny and fight back against what is in that report. Jessica Levison, thank you so much. It's always good to talk to you, my friend. Well, the president-elect and the Panama Canal. What Donald Trump had to say about fees there at the Panama Canal and the response from the Panamanian leadership. When we come back, you're watching CBS News 24/7. Welcome back, everybody. How's this for a headline? President-elect Donald Trump over the weekend threatening to retake the Panama Canal. That happened as Mr. Trump accused Panama of charging excessive rates to use the passage. Well, fast forward to today, and the Panamanian president, Jose Mulino, firing back, saying Panama's independence is not up for debate. Trump, meanwhile, vowing he will not let the canal fall into the wrong hands. He even warned of potential Chinese influence there. So let's go live to CBS News correspondent Christian Benavides. Hello, my friend from West Palm Beach. Good to see you. So seeing an American leader ask a sovereign country to hand over territory, highly unusual. That's why we're talking about it. Panama is a strong U.S. ally.
Reed, that's right. It is highly unusual for the U.S., and it's unclear what necessarily set off this fascination with the Panama Canal. But the president-elect has made clear that he contends that shippers are being charged what he calls ridiculous fees to pass through the canal, which links the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. He also said that the U.S. is being ripped off by Panama and says that the U.S. foolishly gave the canal away. Now, just for some context here, some background, the canal is crucial for the U.S. economy, generating about 1/5 of our yearly revenue. The U.S. initially built the canal in the early 1900s and eventually relinquished control of it by a treaty that was signed by President Jimmy Carter in the 70s. Now, Panama's conservative president, Jose Mulino, is a populist. He aligns with the president-elect in many ways, but in this way he came out forcefully and denounced what the president-elect has called for, saying that Panamanians may have different views on many things, but when it comes to the canal and their sovereignty, they all unite under the Panamanian flag.
All right, Christian, this was not the only headline to come out of that weekend speech. We also heard Mr. Trump say that billionaire Elon Musk will not be president or shadow president. Any indication that Trump is really trying to publicly distance himself from Musk after some Democratic lawmakers started accusing Musk of tanking the bipartisan spending bill and maybe saying that Elon Musk had a little bit too much of the president's ear?
Well, it doesn't seem that the president-elect is necessarily distancing himself from Musk, but he certainly at that conference tried to downplay the influence that Elon Musk has on Republican politics. Also jokingly acknowledged that Musk can't be president because he was born in South Africa, telling the crowd, "I'm safe." And you know why? Because he wasn't born in this country. Over the weekend, even some Republicans, however, raised concerns about Musk, with GOP Congressman Tony Gonzalez saying on Face the Nation that it felt like Musk is our prime minister following that spending battle last week. Democrats have also seized on the opportunity, calling Elon Musk President Musk, clearly aimed at trying to get under Trump's skin. But again, it's unclear whether their relationship has necessarily suffered under all of this. Trump previously joked about Musk, saying that about how much time Musk has been spending at Mar-a-Lago, saying to a crowd at Mar-a-Lago, "I just can't get rid of him." But Musk has been attending many important meetings at the Florida State with the president-elect. We should note that Musk, along with Vivek Ramaswamy, are set to run the Department of Government Efficiency once Trump takes office.
CBS News correspondent Christian Benavides in West Palm Beach, Florida. Thank you so much. Good to see you, my friend. Well, chances are pretty high that you could be watching us from your mobile device while on the road or in the sky for the holidays. The TSA is expecting nearly 40 million of us before January 2nd. The busiest days to travel, the 26th, the 27th, and the 29th. So let's go to CBS News Colorado's Ashley Portillo, live at Denver International. Ashley, you're standing arguably at one of the busiest airports of the year, one of the busiest days of the year. How are the lines looking behind you?
Yeah, Reed, good morning. So right now, the lines behind me, quite a different picture than what we saw really early this morning. If you take a look behind me too, not too many people in the lines right now. Taking a look at the wait times too, only about 5 minutes or so to get through security. A lot different than what we saw earlier today around 7 o'clock this morning. Those wait times were about 15 to 25 minutes just to get through security today. You know, that was during that morning rush hour, a little bit of a null right now during the lunch hour too. Of course, we do anticipate and expect these lines to begin growing once we get into the evening flights a little bit later on, Reed.
All right. Well, please go get an Italian urban cheese at that Subway behind you for me, and I wish you a happy holiday. Our thanks to CBS News Colorado's Ashley Portillo. Thank you so much. Well, remember those deadly exploding pagers that took out members of Hezbollah in recent months? Coming up, CBS News 60 Minutes talking to a former agent about details there. You're watching CBS News 24/7. Welcome back to CBS News 24/7. All right, so you see this video and it might make you remember back in September when pagers on Hezbollah fighters exploded all across Lebanon. Israeli spy agency Mossad launched the daring and sophisticated modern version of this Trojan horse known as the pager plot. CBS 60 Minutes' Leslie Stahl interviewed now retired agents who chose to stay anonymous. Listen.
You were something called a case officer. What exactly is a case officer?
A case officer spearheads the operation. He's the commander of the operation.
The operation started 10 years ago, not with pagers, but with weaponizing walkie-talkies.
A walkie-talkie was a weapon, just like a bullet or a missile or a mortar.
So a walkie-talkie bomb.
A walkie-talkie bomb. Inside the battery, there is an explosive device.
And that was the invention, to put an explosive device that couldn't be detected into the battery.
Correct. Made in Israel.
At Mossad?
Yes.
As I understand it, these walkie-talkies went into a tactical vest that a soldier would put on, and then this would go in the pocket.
Correct.
Near the heart.
Yes.
So Israel sold this device to Hezbollah. Hezbollah paid for this weapon that was to be used against them.
They got a good price.
So fascinating view inside not only the technology, but the planning. CBS News 60 Minutes aired, but you can see more of that report on CBS.com. To New York, and a horrific story at that. Police say a woman set on fire while riding the subway has died after a man set her on fire and watched her burn. Police caught the man they believe lit the fire. They say he came from Guatemala in 2018, but do not know why. So far, no charges filed, while investigators are calling on the public to help identify the victim. Images obtained by subway surveillance cameras show the woman was asleep on that subway before the suspect approached her with what seemed to be a lighter. Within seconds, flames engulfed that woman. The NYPD today offering a $10,000 reward for information on the incident. The family of Texas Congresswoman Kay Granger says she has been experiencing dementia issues and living in a senior living facility. Granger cast her last vote in Congress July 24th and has had limited visits to Washington since the month of September. Granger's term ends January 3rd. She will not be seeking re-election. Looking live at the California city of San Francisco, where it is a cloudy and rainy day with some delays and cancellations for holiday travelers already on the books. So get ready no matter where you are. Especially in San Francisco, we understand more storms are on the way this week, Jess.
Right around the corner, another atmospheric river really impacting anywhere from the Bay Area all the way up into Seattle. So let's first start off by showing you what it's going to look like. This huge area of low pressure bringing in some strong storms, some heavy winds, and even some snow for our friends up in the Sierra, where they're going to be under a winter weather advisory right around the corner due to this mess. Now, this, of course, comes at an inconvenient time because we're all traveling for the holidays right now. And anywhere, like I said, from the Bay Area all the way up into Seattle, we're going to see these strong winds last until Tuesday with wind gusts anywhere up to around 55 miles per hour. Add the rain into the snow to that, of course, this makes it challenging for commuters on the roads. And so if you live in these areas, just take it extra slow out there for the next couple days. The good news is once this pushes through on our Tuesday forecast, it does clear up on the back end just in time for Christmas Day. But we could see anywhere up to around 4 inches of rain in northern California, southern Oregon. We could see anywhere up to around 16 inches of snow all throughout the Sierra and the Cascades. And of course, that high surf warning along the coast remains in effect throughout most of those northern California coastlines until until early tomorrow. So we're going to continue to keep a close eye on that. Rainfall totals are just impressive across the board, though. Areas like Portland expected to see close to around 1.5 inches. You head all the way down to Crescent City and Eureka. That's where we're going to really see this atmospheric river fixate itself. So the Bay Area just south of that could get closer to around 1 to 2 inches of rain. We'll keep a very close eye on those totals, but of course it comes at an inconvenient time right before the holidays.
Yeah, Santa Claus needs Rudolph's nose to burn really red in the sky. All right, thanks, Jess.
Of course.
President Joe Biden makes good on his feelings about the federal death penalty with commutations. Ahead, we're going to look into that and let you know the 3 men who will remain on death row, counting down to the day of their scheduled executions. You're watching CBS News 24/7. Let's get you back to that breaking news out of North Carolina, where police are on the scene of a shooting at a Food Lion grocery store in the town of Greensboro. That's about an hour east of Durham. So here's what we know. The Greensboro Police Department said they will release more details that also involved an officer in about an hour and a half. So we are watching for that. As soon as we see the police step to the podium, we'll bring it to you live. As soon as we know more, we always like to turn it around here on this broadcast. Meanwhile, President Joe Biden taking sweeping action, sparing the lives of almost every death row inmate in federal prison. The death sentences of 37 prisoners commuted to life without parole. So let's bring in CBS News senior White House correspondent Ed O'Keefe. Ed, good to have you with us here. So the outgoing president and the incoming president with much different feelings about the death penalty. So I have to ask, how does Biden's decision to block President-elect Trump's agenda really play out weeks before Donald Trump takes office?
Well, this isn't necessarily blocking his agenda. I mean, Trump did campaign this past year on ensuring that those, for example, might kill police officers should face the federal death penalty. So in essence, expanding it or just reinforcing its use. In the case of these 37 of the 40 men on federal death row, by presidential pardon and commutation power, Biden now just pushes them back to life sentences without parole. Doesn't touch the fact that they are in federal custody, but merely removes the chance that they would be killed. He put a pause on federal death penalty cases, or on federal executions, back during the first year of his presidency after campaigning in 2020 on a vow to end the death penalty through legislation. That didn't happen. So he had taken the federal action to at least pause them, and now this morning announcing that he's going to commute the sentences of 37 of the 40. And it's 37 of the 40 because those other 3 are terrorism or hate crime style crimes for which they were convicted and then sentenced to death.
So let's go a little bit deeper on those 3. Who are they? And is there really any indication about why these 3 will remain awaiting execution?
They'll remain awaiting execution because of the crimes they committed. Again, terrorism or hate related. And you saw there the face of Dzhokhar Tsarnaev, maybe the best known of the 3 convicted back several years ago for his participation in the Boston Marathon bombing and the murder of a police officer. That's him there. Dylan Roof was sentenced several years ago for killing 9 at the Mother Emanuel Baptist Church in South Carolina. And then the man you see there against the blue is Robert Bowers, who was sentenced last year for killing 11 at the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh. So again, they were either hate crimes in that they were targeting Jewish congregants and then black congregants at a church, and then the case of Tsarnaev, it was a terrorism-related case. Biden's pause on death penalty cases back in 2021 didn't apply to these 3 anyway, so eventually these 3 will face the death penalty.
CBS News senior White House correspondent Ed O'Keefe, thank you so much. It's good to be with you today. To New York City now, and the arraignment of the man accused of shooting United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. We're talking, of course, about 26-year-old Luigi Mangione. He pleaded not guilty to 11 state murder and terrorism charges in that killing. So let's bring in CBS News legal contributor Caroline Polisi. Good to have you with us, Caroline. So I want to show you Mangione's attorney in court expressing some concerns over whether her client can get a fair trial. Let's listen to it and then we'll talk about it.
And I just want to put on the record statements that the mayor made publicly about my client. Nothing saying alleged, for example. And he said, I wanted to send a strong message with the police commissioner that we're leading from the front. I'm not going to just allow him to come into our city. I wanted to look him in the eye and state, you carried out this terrorist act in my city, the city of New York that I love. And he wanted to show symbolism. Your Honor, he's not a symbol. He's somebody who is afforded the right to a fair trial. He's innocent until proven guilty. And the mayor was talking to jurors, future potential jurors that elected him. Those are the people that elected him, that he is talking to and calling this man a terrorist.
So, Caroline, that begs the question. The crux of this really is what New York Mayor Eric Adams had to say about Mangione. Does this argument really have any traction in your view?
Yeah, it does. You know, Karen Friedman Agnifilo is a very well-respected lawyer. She knows what's going on. She knows how to make the correct arguments. And it is a compelling legal argument. You know, we have seen sort of this fanfare around the extradition of Mangione from Pennsylvania here to New York City. He was flown, and then the helicopter, and then, you know, all those photographs of him being walked, the perp walk, really, with you know, so many FBI, NYPD, Eric Adams in the background. And she does have a point. Her issue here is the tainting of the potential jury pool. If he does go to trial here, Eric Adams did not hold back when talking about Mangione, acting as though it were a foregone conclusion that he is guilty of this crime. As she noted there, he didn't use the word alleged. And she had some pretty harsh words for him, saying that he, of anybody, should understand that a criminal defendant in this country is innocent until proven guilty, because he's in his own legal problems. So I relate to that argument.
So let's play this out. Let's say the judge sees some credence in that argument. What could we see? Change of venue out of New York, out of New York State? How could that play out?
No, I don't think it'll go that far, but potentially, you know, a tongue lashing and admonishment in terms of moving forward. But look, it is on the flip side, it is going to be difficult to seat a jury regardless. On the other hand, here we do have this social media sort of, you know, a groundswell of support. They're calling him Saint Luigi. The younger people have really, you know, made him a folk hero in some sense. And so prosecutors are going to be worried about potential jury nullification in this case if they seat people that perhaps aren't upfront with their biases or feelings about the healthcare industry personally, and then get back into that jury room, and regardless of what the evidence shows, they vote not guilty. So on both sides of the coin, you have really big issues with respect to tainting the jury pool here.
Okay, so important story, but now let's pivot. While we have you, let's talk about that ethics report on Florida Republican Matt Gaetz. That report alleges crimes committed. So my question is, why no charges, especially given the language of that report using those words, statutory rape?
Yeah, so different evidentiary standards, right? So that report, the language used was that there was evidence that, you know, these types of behavior had occurred. Now, that's very different from federal prosecutors believing that they can obtain a conviction and sustain a conviction on appeal. Remember that standard is proof beyond a reasonable doubt. They did have a sprawling 3-year investigation. And, you know, reports were that maybe they didn't feel that all of the evidence was enough to get over that hurdle of beyond a reasonable doubt. There were some issues with witness credibility. Now, that doesn't mean that this report isn't legitimate, and that in the court of public opinion, it's potentially more likely than not that he has committed the crimes alleged here. It just has to go to that different standard. But, you know, Matt Gaetz, I would note, has noted that he has been, quote unquote, exonerated of these crimes. DOJ doesn't exonerate anybody from crimes. They decline to prosecute, but it has nothing to do with whether or not he engaged in the conduct that is described in this report.
Fascinating to report, to read, and CBS News has our hand on it. We've been able to review that. We appreciate the conversation. Caroline Polisi, you have a great day. A big shakeup in the auto industry. There is a behemoth in the making. Honda and Nissan announcing plans to work towards a merger. So together, the two companies would form the third largest automaker in the world. So let's bring in CBS News Money Watch correspondent Kelly O'Grady. Kelly, what's in it for these companies to join forces?
Yeah, so Reed, essentially this combining of resources, if it were to happen, would make it a lot easier for Honda and Nissan to take a run at their Chinese competitors in that very, very important Chinese car market. And it would also allow them to make hopefully better and more profitable investments in electric vehicles and new auto technology. I mean, Nissan particularly has been really struggling of late. They'd have to lay off staff, slash their manufacturing output, meaning less cars in production. And across the industry in general, you have seen these car companies, legacy car companies, struggle to make that transition away from fossil fuels towards EVs in a very profitable way. The Chinese car companies have been able to do that. They have been able to produce efficient, affordable cars. And so the hope for these two companies is if they were to merge, they would have those combined resources and they would be in a better position to compete. But these are just talks. There's so many things that could derail this merger, Reed.
All right, so we'll be watching that one closely through you. We know you've got the contacts to let us know what happens. I have to just say, we're going into the holidays, party season, Party City, a go-to. What is up with Party City? Break the news for us and break it down at what it says about retailers in general this year.
Yeah, so I hate to say it, but their stores are closing. And this is a broader trend, Reed, that we have seen. We have seen so many retail locations either file for bankruptcy or close down in general. And our behavior as consumers has been more towards online shopping. For the Amazons, the Walmarts in the online space, we have become less interested in going to the store. So if you're not a retailer that has a necessary in-store experience and is providing discounts and value, you're going to be struggling. And we're seeing this with Party City. I will admit, Reed, I planned a bachelorette for my best friend in Vegas. We went to Party City to get the balloons blown up because that was something we needed. But everything else we ordered on Amazon because we didn't need to go into the store and it was cheaper on Amazon. So that's just something that you've seen as much of a trend in the retail industry.
I know that store right off the Summerlin Parkway in Las Vegas. Next time I'm in Las Vegas, I don't know. It's like a party pooper. Kelly O'Grady, thank you so much. We will find where to buy our streamers and survive another day. Nice to talk to you, friend. All right, when we come back, we have our eye on America. Pounding the pavements. Your stories from your neighborhoods when we come back on CBS News 24/7. All right, how about we head to Detroit now where the winter weather might just affect your afternoon drive time. Let's talk to Jess, tracking snow and sleet in Michigan.
Of course, and we're also getting a little concerned when it comes to the holidays right around the corner, too, for these last-minute Christmas shopping travels, or maybe you're trying to get on the roads to get to your loved ones just in time for the season. Now, here's what's happening right now. Anywhere from Michigan all throughout the Northeast, you see the storm right here really becoming widespread throughout the Northeast, the Mid-Atlantic, as we head into the overnight hours tonight, early morning hours tomorrow. And timing this out, taking a look at this strong storm, I mean, this area of low pressure, we're used to these storms during this time of year, but of course it comes at such an inconvenient time. Anywhere from Madison, Wisconsin, actually all the way over into New York, we're going to continue to see really, really stubborn weather into the overnight hours tonight all along the Great Lakes, with some of that lake effect snow really impacting areas like upstate New York. Now, on average, we're going to see closer to around 6 inches of that snowfall anywhere from the Northeast across the Mid-Atlantic, with winter weather advisories in effect issued by the National Weather Service. Look at the time of the storm, though. Here we go all the way into Tuesday afternoon. It starts pushing offshore, which is great news for Christmas Eve festivities. If we take a look at the snow forecast, it's pretty impressive in certain areas. Of course, just along that Canadian border, along those lakes, that's where we're going to see some of the most, and that's all due to that lake effect snow pushing across areas all the way up into Tupper Lake. Syracuse expected to see closer to around 3.5 inches just into Tuesday's forecast. So if you're planning on heading out and hitting the airports today, tomorrow, this is really what we're expecting. Areas like Los Angeles sitting in the 60s. We're seeing partly cloudy skies. You head all the way over into Chicago, completely different picture. 40s and snow expected for us throughout this afternoon. We turn the page all the way into tomorrow. Well, it's looking pretty similar for our friends near Chicago, Los Angeles, all throughout California. We're going to start seeing more clouds and even some rain in Northern California, which we'll have more on in a bit. Back to you.
All right, Jess, you got to stay here and see this with me. Turning our monitors now to Hawaii for some seismic activity. Listen to the roar of that. This is on the Big Island. Kilauea volcano erupting. Scorching hot lava there, rising and bubbling to the surface. This, of course, comes after a 3-month pause from one of the world's most active volcanoes. Now this.
4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition and liftoff. Go Falcon, go Starlink.
That is fire of a different sort. Liftoff, indeed. SpaceX launched another 21 Starlink internet satellites into space this morning. As the company continues to build out its broadband space system, those satellites carried by a Falcon 9 rocket. Rocket returned to Earth 8 minutes after liftoff. SpaceX has more than 6,800 active satellites in orbit. Now this. Our Eye on America series keeps our commitment where it belongs, telling your stories in your community. So let's go to Minnesota now, where 2 strangers are now finding purpose and inspiration on Twin City running paths. CBS News Minnesota's Jennifer Mayerly shows us the bond that quickly grew between an ultra-marathon runner and a beginner who needed some help just getting a good foot forward.
And now we just get to cruise. Now we just do what we do best.
It's a regular fall afternoon run for Michael Fuller and Mahesh Matthew.
All right, Mahesh, we're going to go a little to your left. We're just passing 2 walkers.
The duo started running nearly a year ago. Michael is Mahesh's guide.
I thought about, like, at any given time, I'm ready to run at least a marathon. So, like, how can I use my legs to give back in something that I'm passionate about, and how running can be therapy for the mind and then therapy for the body as well.
It was something Mahesh thought about starting for his seeing eye dog, Vino.
He always works for me, you know, like he has been guiding me. Then I thought like I should get into running just so that he also get exercise, I also get exercise.
So Michael and Mahesh set a schedule and got going.
So first 2 weeks was 3 minutes running, 1 minute walk, 3 minutes running, 1 minute walk. And then we just a nice progression build from there. And then back to your right.
They began working toward a goal,
Perfect.
A half marathon.
I didn't know about 5K or 10K at that time, so only thing I knew about was marathoning.
Mahesh has kept putting one foot in front of the other in life, too. He lost his sight following a car accident 6 months after getting his MD in internal medicine in India.
Living all these years with vision and then having to relearn everything. So the hardest part was to first, stop worrying about what happened, because it's very hard to get over that pain of loss.
Moving forward is what Mahesh has chosen to do ever since. He came to Minnesota to see experts at Mayo Clinic.
Holes in front of you, Mahesh, you got it? Yeah.
And got involved with programs at Courage Kenny.
I had no choice. I had to figure out ways to get over the barriers.
I'm going to move a little to your right.
Running with Michael is just one more way he's doing that. Finishing a half marathon months after starting their training.
It's a small achievement, but it felt really good about it.
We both played a part in it, right? To experience it hand in hand every step. It was definitely a bond.
They're choosing to try new things.
If you want to do something, there's always ways to do it. You just try to figure it out.
That's a good pace.
Along the way, teaching each other the meaning of pushing boundaries.
Perfect. Mahesh, I think you've opened my eyes to, I always believed anything is possible, but I do believe that even more so now. This is where Albino likes to finish it out.
Jennifer Mayerly,
nice job, bud.
CBS News, Minnesota.
There, we need each other in this world. Well, Santa, let's talk about Santa. Went the extra mile to deliver gifts in Guatemala City today. A 78-year-old local firefighter descended nearly 80 yards from that bridge you see right there to put on a show for children who needed some holiday cheer. There he is. The firefighter says he's been part of this program for 27 years. That just shows you Santa Claus has help everywhere he goes. The greatest elf of all, using a rope. But pretty soon he's going to trade in that rope for a reindeer. Thank you so much for watching CBS News 24/7. It's always a joy to have you here. We appreciate it.